Dion Hinchcliffe here, VP and Principal Analyst covering CIO topics and the future of work.
And I'm Doug Henschen, VP and Principal Analyst covering data to decisions, and we're your co-host for episode 71 of CRTV.
That's right. CRTV is your show for news, trends, and innovations in enterprise technology.
And in this episode, following the news, I'm going to offer a preview of my soon-to-be-published first report of 2024, which is on sustainability outlook for 2024, along with a bit of a recap on some of the regs and news that came in 2023 on the topic of sustainability and ESG.
And be sure to stick around for our final segment this week. Doug and I will share our predictions for the year ahead in enterprise technology, and we have some good ones. But first, let's get to the news.
Well, as usual, we're joined by Larry Dignan, Editor-in-Chief of Constellation Insights. Happy New Year, Larry. What's in the news?
Happy New Year. All about predictions right now. So let's see. Stuff for the week ahead. Actually, a couple weeks ahead. There's a lot of, I guess we're about to find out what the fourth quarter looks like. Mm-hmm. So there'll be a bunch of earnings coming out. The banks kick it off, and then it goes into tech. And, there are a bunch of things to look for here, but perhaps the biggest one is just how consumers held up. Also, just what companies are saying about the economy. And, in our world, it's what they're saying about the economy and their outlook is going to be critical just because that drives IT spending. Like you could pretty much chart IT spending and optimism based on the S&P 500. Which has kind of gotten whacked at the start the new year. So I think that's going to be a big issue to watch. The other stuff I'll be watching is CES and just all the announcements out there, because usually there are things that matter to the enterprise over time. And so one close thing I'm looking at is just PCs and how they're going to be doing more processing of AI on the edge, which I think is going to be an ongoing theme for 2024, because not everybody's going to want to go up into the cloud. So I think we're going to try to do as much inference and, just processing on edge computers, probably even smartphones, depending on the application. So I think that move to the edge is going to be interesting, but it'll all kick off in, things from PC makers at CES and NVIDIA and Intel. So I'll be watching what those chip giants really have to say.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. Consumer technology really drives a lot of what ends up in the enterprise. It used to be the other way around. And so it's going to be interesting. And to that point, the thing I'm tracking closely this morning, Apple announced finally the actual date that the new Apple Vision Pro is going to be available to the market. And that's going to be on February 2nd, 2024. Pre-orders go online February 19th. And this is a product everyone's watching because spatial computing really hasn't taken off, like many expected. The metaverse didn't happen like people were expecting, but it may have been because the technology was just too clunky. You had to strap these big things to your head. And Apple has really focused on, with the Apple Vision Pro, it's trying to make the category into it's going to democratize it, hopefully like it did with the GUI, with mobile computing with the iPhone, with the Apple Watch. Apple has an excellent track record of bringing these things to market and creating making that market essentially. And they're hoping to do that by addressing specifically the challenges of the early devices. So the isolation factor is reduced because you can see people's faces while you're wearing this thing. You can see the person who's wearing it you can actually see their eyes and everything. People around you are actually seamlessly introduced into the experience. You're not cut off from people while you're wearing it. You have a knob that can control the degree of immersion and how much of the real world you see and how much of the video display that you see. So they've really tried to address some of the top complaints about these technologies, and it's very lightweight and very comfortable to wear, and the battery's not in the device. It's not heavy, unlike the other ones. And there's 25 million pixels per eye. So they've also really upped what it's capable of, so it doesn't look like you're in this low resolution universe. It's really seamless. But at $3,499 for the entry level model, it's going to be a tough sell for consumers. And so this is clearly an enterprise device at first. And so the question is will we see these primarily in innovation labs inside our enterprises? That's how we've seen so many technologies arrive in the enterprise and never leave the innovation lab. Are we going to see this more broadly being used by executives like the iPad? When the iPad came out, I was working on enterprise executive strategies for iPads within the first couple weeks of the iPad being announced, because that was clearly an executive device. And that's how it got really big uptake in enterprise adoption early on. Tough to see what's going to happen here. And so it's going to be one to watch. I personally am bullish. They have addressed many of the issues, and the technology package overall is really impressive. And we'll see what the market thinks soon. So
count me as bearish. I think this is the next Apple smart speaker, late to the market, more expensive than the other players. Maybe there's some niche uses, but that's really not Apple's game. Apple is a mainstream technology company. They want something to be used by end users, and at that price ticket, I'm not seeing it.
I think for me, it's a question of how fast they can get to scale and then bring the prices down.
Yeah,
I mean, for right now,
the second version that goes mainstream. Well, I still really compelling that you can bring 4 8K monitors in your pocket, basically in your backpack. You can put it on and you have this incredible immersive experience. The question is, do enough people want it, and will they get the price down fast enough? So it's
and I also wonder about the category overall. For starters, Apple, if this works, they can, shine a spotlight on the metaverse overall, and then companies will look to, Oculus and Meta to basically, for the cheaper devices or whatever, or they'll find use cases for it. If it flops and it fails miserably, then it's just going to cast a pall over the whole metaverse idea, which Absolutely. I don't think that idea is like half baked.
All that's already there, I would say.
That's the argument. Can it get any worse?
Warner Brothers just announced a Ready Player One universe, that has a lot of things that people are looking for from a consumer standpoint. So we'll see. People are still trying, but no one's hit the mark yet.
We'll see.
Maybe this one.
All right, guys. Well, I'm more bearish about Gen AI, and we have a lot to share. Diane and I have a 2024 prediction segment coming up later in this episode, so watch for that. I'm more bearish. I share some predictions about Gen AI, but my third item is a little bit of caution and a feeling like 2024 is going to be a year of trade-offs and balancing trust with the promise of Gen AI. And according to a new IBM report and survey, there's going to be this balance between responsible AI and ethics questions. We've already seen some lawsuits. So this whole idea of fake news, IP theft, we've seen lawsuits. We're going to see a lot of fake news in 2024 in an election year. So according to IBM's survey, fewer than 60% of executives think their organizations are prepared for AI regs, and more than half of CEOs are kind of pumping the brakes specifically on their Gen AI investments. They're delaying these investments until they have more clarity on AI standards and regulations. And as I say, it's going to be possibly an ugly year in terms of fake news, generated content, IP theft is already in the news. So that's something to watch for in 2024, and another prediction for the coming year. Guys, any comments on that?
Yeah, one nuance to watch that I've kind of been thinking about is like, all right, so you get the backlash to Gen AI, where you'll have the lawsuits and the IP theft, and most of that stuff is more like, Google or whatever OpenAI ingest, etc. I sort of wonder if you remember open source, where it was sort of like we talked about it nonstop, and then when everyone stopped talking about it, or there was like a backlash against it, or it's not going anywhere, that's when it was widely adopted in the enterprise. I almost wonder if this is the situation where Gen AI, like once you get over the trust and you figure out how to segment your data and all that, whether there'll actually be use cases that they actually scale that are separated from all the bad headlines and all the consumer crap and what's happening to my movie and fake news and
Sounds like proverbial trough of diminished expectations followed by the plateau of productivity.
Well, I just think there's two sides to every technology. There's sort of the adoption part, which is usually quieter. And then there's the hype part, which I think we can all safely say 2023 had a lot of Gen AI in it. So I guess my thing would be, I don't know if I'm bullish or bearish. I'm much more nuanced about it.
Well, I'm mostly bullish, but if we see a big uptick in the AI IP trolls, where you have a bunch of investors funding lawsuits against all these companies, looking for anything and asking for discovery, knowing they're going to find a bunch of things, we'll see if these rocks turn over a lot of scary things, and there's a lot of successful lawsuits. That's going to be another interesting story. So that's one to watch in 2024 too.
Well, that's it for this week's news summary. Stay tuned for my preview of my report on Sustainability 2024, as well as Dion and I get together for our predictions for technology in 2024. Hey folks, Doug Henschen of Constellation Research, and Happy New Year. I'm already working on my first report for 2024. It's a Sustainability Outlook 2024. It's going to explore what changed in 2023. What organizations need to look for, what they need to look beyond, really, which is the basics of compliance and reporting, which are now really becoming table stakes. So what happened in 2023? Really, the big news came out of the European Union with their regulations getting real. In late 2022, they passed the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD. It took effect in January 2023 for corporate reporting beginning here in fiscal year 2024. So, large companies were the first impacted, and they're going to be reporting their greenhouse gas emissions and climate risks starting here in 2024. And this is really going to roll out over the next 5 years, eventually hitting all European-based companies with more than 250 employees, more than 50 million euros in revenue. That'll affect really more than 50,000 EU-based firms, but it's also going to impact non-EU firms, including U.S. firms with one or more large or listed EU subsidiaries, or one or more large EU branches with at least 40 million in euros in revenue. So the bottom line, if you do business in the EU, this CSRD is going to apply to you. Next up is on the global front. You don't see regulations globally. You see organizations like the UN trying to promote standards. But the IFRS, the Financial Reporting Standards Board that more than 140 countries use globally, created this organization, the International Sustainability Standards Board, one of its boards as part of the IFRS, and it published its inaugural IFRS S2 Sustainability Reporting Standards. And they're going to be promoting these standards across the more than 140 countries that use IFRS reporting. And the idea is in promoting uniformity. You make things simpler for companies to report across the globe. And already we've seen the UK align its sustainability disclosure requirements to IFRS S2. Singapore, Canada, China, Brazil, South Africa, among the countries using IFRS that are promising to integrate IFRS S2 into their reporting standards. So the bottom line, we've seen a tremendous consolidation of many voluntary frameworks that existed before have been rolled into this ISSB standard. SASB, for example, IIRC, CDSB, and a few others. So really that alphabet soup that people talked about had businesses head spinning about all the different reporting requirements. That is consolidating. There's still a ways to go. There's also alignment between this ISSB standard and the EU's CSRD. So the good news is that we're seeing fewer, more aligned, consolidated standards. Now, as for the U.S., the Securities and Exchange Commission was expected to release final disclosure regulations but that's still pending here as of early January 2024. Haven't seen them, but we did see from California, long a leader in regulating the automotive industry. They're starting to regulate with State Bill 253, passed in June, I believe, Climate Corporate Data Accountability Act, and it requires large public companies doing business in the state to disclose Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions starting in 2026. What is a large company? It's one with more than $1 billion in revenue. What does it mean to be doing business in the state? It means you have more than $700,000 in sales in the state, you have more than $70,000 in property, and you have more than $70,000 in payroll in the state. It also passed SB 261, Climate-Related Financial Risk Act. This is about reporting financial risks from climate change, floods, fires, weather impacts, using TCFD, the voluntary framework, starting in 2026. I'm sure once the SEC comes up with some regs, it'll use SEC regs instead of TCFD. Here, in this case, it applies to companies with more than $500 million in revenue total, not just what they're doing in California. With that, it's the 700,000 threshold that applies. So the bottom line in all this is that, if you do business globally or want to be a supplier to large companies almost anywhere in the world, sustainability reporting is sort of an inevitability. But in my view, it's not enough. The good news here is that regulations and standards have coalesced. Reporting tools and methods are maturing, and disclosing is easier. We still have a way to go to kind of get to a consistent set of reporting requirements around the globe. So businesses know exactly what they need to do, and they need to do it once, and it'll apply all over the globe. That's the hoped for estate. As for recommendations, like I said, reporting is not enough. It being reactive, just doing the bare minimum, meeting the compliance requirement, not very inspiring, not very proactive and productive for your business. And in some cases, like the CSRD, the EU rule, is not only requiring sustainability reporting, it calls on companies for the first time to establish KPIs for ongoing performance improvement. So on risk reduction, climate risk reduction, and emissions reductions. And really, if you think about it, and this is the carrot side of this equation, carbon is cost, energy is cost, and sustainability is its own reward. It's optimization, it's cost reduction. And the good news is that once you have reporting measures, you can then get into planning for ongoing performance improvement. And performance improvement is bottom line improvement, not just greenhouse gas improvement. And a lot of companies that have been pursuing this for a while, and certainly most large companies have been pursuing this for many years now, they've learned that Scope 1 and Scope 2, things under their control, it's very easy to find reductions, new ways of doing processes, ways to eliminate waste, reduce, reuse, recycle. Scope 3, that's what's coming from suppliers and what downstream customers are doing in terms of their emissions with your products, components of your products coming from suppliers. Harder to control, but we've seen a lot of progress here at Constellation Research. My colleague Larry Dignan writes about sustainability topic with many companies, and in our insights page at constellationr.com, you'll see stories about how leading companies are leading on sustainability. One use case that I'm going to share in my report is Walmart. They set science-based targets for greenhouse gas emission reductions back in 2017. They called it the Gigaton Project. That was the goal, eliminate a gigaton of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And with support from more than 5,000 of their suppliers, including many non-public companies that aren't subject to government regulations, they've managed to work together with suppliers to already eliminate 750 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions in 2023. So they only have 250 million to go. I'm sure they're going to up their goal and continue to work on that, because their big picture goal is to have zero emissions from Walmart operations by 2040 without carbon offsets. That's a very ambitious goal. Another example is Dell. They have net zero goals. A scope 3 for them is all the energy that a computer uses over the life of its use by its customer. So it's a harder goal for a company like Dell. Also looking to reuse or recycle 1 metric ton of computer gear for every metric ton of product that they sell. So they've got some ambitious goals, and I want to share in the report some of the lessons they've learned. For example, they set that big goal, but then getting to the goal, executing is another matter. So they've found that they needed to really narrow down their top level goals. They went from 25 down to 9, and learned that many of those other goals were really subordinate drivers of the larger goals. They also tied the goals to key impact areas that they are working on, so they know they can actually address and have performance improvements. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about not just reporting, actually working on improving things in the company. And they've also determined which executives are responsible for which goals. So it's not just a chief sustainability officer thing. It's the total company changing the way the company works, reducing the company's emissions, working towards those sustainability goals, reducing risks tied to climate change. Another example that Larry wrote about, you can find at constellation.com/insights, is PepsiCo. They've worked on monitoring their resource usage patterns, modifying their processes to reduce waste, and optimizing delivery routes. And all of that has been contributed to $1 billion in cost reduction. And that goes right to the bottom line. And that's a good note to end on. Look for my report later this month or early next month on Sustainability Outlook 2024. Here's wishing you and your company a success in achieving greater sustainability in the year ahead. Hey, welcome folks. This is Doug Henschen of Constellation Research, and I'm joined by my colleague Dion Hinchcliffe to share our tech predictions for 2024. I'll start with the prediction that the Gen AI hype we heard ad nauseum in 2023 is going to continue in 2024. It was really a year of Gen AI announcements with precious few actual generally available Gen AI capabilities for the enterprise. So 2024, hopefully we're really going to start to see enterprise Gen AI actually coming into force, actually seeing features, and I think we'll see a little bit of the downtrend on hype cycle as well. Dion, any thoughts on?
Yeah, well, I tend to agree. We talked all year that CIOs were under major pressure to deliver on something to the business that was meaningful with AI, but the technology is not baked yet for the enterprise, right? So there's all the safety issues, guardrails, IP protection, all those things that we talked about. So hyper automation, which is end-to-end automation, with everything is taken care of, by AI or some other assistive technology, including the automation itself is automated. And AI foundation building, people are just trying to figure out how to get access to the compute to build these models. So proving out of vendors, and then the whole thing with OpenAI really made it, people really focus on, okay, whoever I work with, I really have to understand who they are and how much of my business I can bet on them. And so, we're seeing big tech antitrust is going into the year, with even Apple under scrutiny. That's going to be another big trend, I think, that also is going to connect and intertwine with all these things. And so, it's going to be fascinating.
All right, well, let's dig in on predictions. My first prediction for 2024 is really about the analytical data platforms space, which is really core to my data to decisions coverage. We're talking here about data warehouses, data lakes, lake houses, the combination of the two. And again, I think we're going to finally see generally available releases of some of those headliner announcements from 2023. The two themes there were vector embedding and search features for databases. We saw announcements from Databricks, Google, Snowflake, AWS in the analytical space. Also on the transactional side, MongoDB, Couchbase, and other transactional databases added Gen AI capabilities announcements. We're going to see those come to fruition. And plenty of vendors also announced natural language to SQL query features. again, based on Gen AI, but far fewer have gone further to ensure real accuracy and performance, because Gen AI is meant to be creative, and when it comes to a database, you want something that is more trustworthy, more accurate. So my prediction for 2024 in this space is that we're going to see custom database native large language models, multimodal models, fine-tuned to be fully aware of the database's specific SQL syntax and specific analytical functions, as well as industry data definitions and context. So, for example, I just completed a report on a Connecticut database, which is something purpose-built for analytical time series and spatial data at scale. They have the option of GPU acceleration. And in May, like many database vendors in 2023, they announced a SQL GPT feature, natural language query, really accelerated and made much more robust with Gen AI. But then in September, they announced a DB native LLM fine-tuned to harness the database's specific analytical functions, time series, graph, geospatial, vector search. And then in December, they added a custom model for telecommunications. And we're going to see a lot more of that. We're going to see database vendors bringing specific models, not just general purpose natural language query, into their databases.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about especially the vector databases. For the very first time, I see a lot of enterprises looking at them. SQL has been the mainstay, and NoSQL was never really that popular in the enterprise, but vector databases have immediately applicable use, especially with all the AI around. So I think you're spot on.
Yeah, I'd say it's vector database, vector embedding, and vector search features embedded in the database that you already have. There are specific, database vector databases, Pinecone and the like. They have their role, but most of the databases we all know and love are going to be adding these features: natural language SQL generation and vector embeddings and search. Yep.
And I think that's the on-ramp that the enterprise really likes to see is in the products that they're using. So it's interesting, Doug. Last year we saw GPT-4 come out, and it was able to pass many human exams at a 90% level, 90 percentile level. So as good as the best humans in many cases, including the things like the bar exam. And so my prediction for 2024 is that we're going to see another AI breakthrough, the scale of GPT-4. Breathtaking, a stunning leap in both intelligence and capability. And we've seen Sam Altman alluded to this, that he saw something recently in the OpenAI labs, that just was going to change everything again. And so we're going to have at least one more, and maybe several more moments like this as we see incredible products that are pushing the envelope. If they're already at 90% of human expert capability, can you imagine what's coming? And that's likely to be in 2024. And these new systems, these super intelligent systems, will have a better connection to the world. They're not going to be generating images and text for us. Many of the startups I'm tracking, especially enterprise ones, take action through IT systems. And so that has many implications for safety and trust and regulatory issues. And we do see Europe actually getting ahead in this and saying, this is going to happen. We're going to have these super intelligent systems connected to the world directly. And that's coming in 2024. And so this has it's very exciting, and I think it has been done with great care. And so this might come from OpenAI. In fact, it's likely, I think, that to keep their momentum going and to overcome the issues they ran into late last year, they're likely going to have to bring a proof point to market that says, here we go, we've got the next generation broadly accessible super intelligence. And so, but we're seeing tons of startups.
John, are we talking about multimodal here? What's the breakthrough? You say it's beyond the images and text that we saw in 2023.
So, for example, being able to directly, connect to ERP systems, connect to your CRM, to your marketing and sales systems, and actually take direct action as opposed to just outputting text is what I'm saying. The AIs will be able, and instead of just giving you a text output, multimodal output in image or text or video or whatever, the video will be big this year, but it'll directly be giving orders and commands through APIs to underlying IT systems. That's where the AI really gets unleashed. And so many startups are actually specifically focusing on saying, we've got to connect the AIs directly to the enterprise ecosystem for them to be able to take action. Otherwise, you still have humans in the loop, which may actually be a good idea in a lot of cases, but where you get the real throughput, where you get the real automation is when the AI is directly connected and giving commands to those systems.
And I'm hoping those humans are in the loop on automating these things.
No, we're just going to say yes. So that's going to be hand in hand with these super intelligent systems is going to be safety and trust. But yeah, let's hear your next prediction.
Yeah. So second prediction is the area of BI and analytics. This is where business people make sense of what's in those data warehouses, data lakes, and lake houses. And my 2024 prediction is Gen AI is going to help to change how people consume BI and analytics. We're going to see more concise natural language query within apps and collaboration platforms. And it's accelerating this existing trend we've had for many years, kind of moving beyond dashboards and reports, having to swivel chair integration between where you make decisions and going off to a separate analytical resource. For context, early 2023, lots of natural language query within BI and analytics platforms. Microsoft Copilots announced in May, just became public previews in November. Salesforce Tableau GPT announced in May, renamed Einstein Copilot for Tableau, finally made a public preview in December. Tableau Pulse, a new concise actionable insights interface for business users, public preview in December. Amazon Q, Gen AI update on QuickSight Q, announced as a public preview in late November. Google Duet in Looker, August announcement, expect GA in 2024. So you get the pattern. I think the big caution I would share is that there's still a really important role for analysts, curating the data, curating the questions and the prompts, curating the metrics. Mainstream business users, and this is where we're going to see this impact, don't necessarily know what questions to ask. So maybe we'll see the Gen AI building dashboards and reports where they're still needed for a sort of a system of record. But the curation of business metrics is going to be really important. The curation of the data, of course, very important. What do the metrics mean? What's good for the business? Business users will need prompts. They'll need guidance from analysts on how to make use of these Gen AI features.
Yeah, it's interesting, Doug. The reinforcement learning is where humans are in the loop guiding the AI has really led to the most successful large language models. People aren't talking about the fact there's tens of thousands of people behind things like GPT-4 guiding it to make sure it's making the right conclusions and looking at the data the right way. So it's interesting. So analysts aren't going to go anywhere. They'll get smarter. So my second prediction is, given all that we've just talked about, and that we're also on the cusp of spatial computing is going to get a big test this year. We'll talk about that in the main show. My prediction is that alternative computing will grow massively in business applications in 2024. And traditional binary compute, that's the CPU that's in all of our computers, isn't growing in power nearly fast enough. We've been tracking this for a few years now, but now it's really becoming a major issue due to AI and other really computationally complex workloads, many of which you deal with, Doug. And so there's real processing power hunger to cost effectively deliver on this. I wrote a report last year that private cloud computing is becoming a big deal, just to really optimize and control every last cycle. But CPUs are just not going to do it. So it's GPUs, FPGAs, all the new AI chips, including analog AI chips that are coming. Quantum is getting close, and next on the horizon is neuromorphic computing, which really emulates computing architectures that emulate how the human mind works. All of this is growing much faster than the regular CPU market, and so in 2024 we're going to see much more focused on specialized computing, very large workloads, training all of your large language models and all your corporate data. And so it's going to be a GPU versus CPU year, but the GPU growth will blow CPUs out of the water by almost every measure. And as we see a larger switch over to this more specialized computing, the enterprises don't have the skill for this. So, a corollary is that enterprises are going to struggle to secure talent and access to sufficient compute. Access to the actual chips is still a very significant issue, given they're competing with AI companies and the hyperscalers. And so the winners that can get the talent and get access to the compute and get their AI models to market will go the spoils. And that's my big prediction, the second big prediction for 2024.
Yeah, I'd say just as there's the balance between trust and the promise and the innovation on Gen AI, the use of these high performance chips. There will be a balance when the bills come for the use of these chips.
Yep, you got it.
Well, that's all the time we have for this year's predictions. Here's hoping your tech transformation and innovation projects are a big success in the year ahead.
Well, that's a wrap for episode 71 of CRTV. Get set for our next episode coming up in 2 weeks.
That's right. Watch for our co-hosts Holger Mueller and Liz Miller, who will bring you episode 72 of CRTV. And in the meantime, follow us on Twitter at CRTV Show, at our website, ConstellationR.com, and you can subscribe to Constellation Research on YouTube. Also visit ConstellationR.com/blogs to subscribe to Larry Dignan's weekly Constellation Insights newsletter.
Thanks for watching and have a great week. Get my head up there, same as with.
Yeah, more or less headroom. Let's see how this is looking.
Hello, Dion Hinchcliffe here, VP and Principal Analyst covering CIO. I'll start this over again one more time.
There was kind of a lag.
It was really weird.
So I kind of stepped on you, and then maybe. Yeah,
and then it was forever. It was like 5 seconds before round trip before you realized, or I realized what you were saying. So.
All right, so let's call in Larry. Has anybody heard from him this morning?
Larry, quite contrary.
What are we talking about?
So you're a little close to the camera. Can you back up?
No, I'll back up. I just want to read something real quick.
Let me redo that. I had episode 67.
That's the risk. I have to remember closing them, otherwise.
Yeah.